Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for March 15th, 2022. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we remain standing for Judge Weipert and the passing of him? He's such a great man for this community and this county, so. Thank you. Okay. Item 2 is approval of the agenda.
Yeah, Brett.
Oh, golly, almost missed that. Okay. Andrew Brammer, Assembly of Christians, come on up. Thank you.
Let's pray. Father, I thank you for this lovely day that you've given us, for this opportunity to come together and to discuss things that are happening in this community, Lord. Thank you for the blessing of living in a country like this, where we do have these freedoms, Lord, to gather together and to discuss things and to really get things done in a peaceful way. Father, I pray that you would give good wisdom, good community, good direction to these leaders and to this community as everything that hits the table here tonight. I pray that you would give good guidance. And it's in Christ's name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, item 2 is approval of the agenda. Do you have any changes or additions?
Motion to approve is submitted.
Support. Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Bruning. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 3 is the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to approve and place on file A, minutes of the March 1st, 2022 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, the general, savings, pooled funds, and CD reports from the treasurer. C, the revenue, expense report, and balance sheet for the period ending February 28th, 2022. D, resignation of Aaron Round as an alternate for the Board of Review effective immediately.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Supported Ms. Janizak. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, up next is presentations, Monroe County Sheriff's Department update. Appreciate you being here.
Just a few things to get the staff report. Unfortunately, I did not run off the speed sign report. Forgot to. I apologize for that. I did want to talk a little bit about the speed signs.
They want you to talk in the microphone if you could pull it closer, or if it's not on. Okay, there we go.
Is that better? Sorry about that. I don't got to start over, do I?
Yes.
No. That's right, my face. So the speed signs, I had hoped to have the quote and everything ready for you guys to go for this meeting, but that just did not happen. As we were getting ready to finalize everything, we found out that the road commission raised some concerns about the pole and the strength. So we kind of went back to the drawing board to make sure that that was okay. And as it turns out, they sent us a letter. I think I sent it to you. Those poles are sufficient to hold that weight, which is good because it's already installed for the ones in Lambertville. So that was the hiccup for that. So I believe it's going to go on in another month. Is that correct? Okay. And I think Carl's going to get with you, or Dr. Schultz is going to get with you soon on that. I wanted to report that we are going to, in the coming days or weeks, we're going to run a distracted driving detail. It's going to be, we're going to highlight Frenchtown Township, Bedford Township. We don't have the date yet, but we're going to have some people in plain clothes trying to find people on their cell phones or doing stuff that's just, distracting their driving. And then we're going to have chase cars set up around and pull them over and take some aggressive enforcement action. We're also going to participate with the state on this initiative as well. There's going to be one day, I believe in April, where it's going to be a statewide push. So we are going to advertise when we do it, so you guys will know, and you kind of want to push it out to the community. I mean, we're not looking to hammer people, but we want compliance, so that's why we're going to advertise. And then finally, I have a case highlight. Last month I didn't have anything. What I'm about to tell you, I had to write it down because I wouldn't remember, so I'm just going to read it off. And as Trustee Gore can attest, what I'm about to say is not something that, it's something that every police officer, deputy sheriff has done repeatedly, and it's not for a pat on the back. It's not to ask, to be identified as heroic, but sometimes I think it's lost on citizens that don't understand some of the dangers that we encounter. And we had one last month that could have been really bad. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that. So on February 24th at approximately 1:15 a.m., deputies assigned to the Bedford contract were dispatched to the 7500 block of Lewis Avenue on a report of a man who pointed a gun at another person's head before firing off a round into the ground. This information was relayed to the responding deputies, who all raced to get to the scene. The first deputy to arrive was by himself. As he exited his patrol vehicle, he could hear a man arguing with someone from around the corner of the building. With little regard for his own safety, the deputy approached the man with his gun drawn at a low ready position. He emerged from around the corner of the building to find the man arguing with someone on the phone. So he was on the phone arguing with somebody. That's what he heard, but he didn't see that. And the report that he had was that it was pointed a gun at somebody's head, and then a subsequent gunshot. So here's this deputy by himself, responding at night. The deputy quickly identified this person as a suspect due to the clothing description. He engaged the man and ordered him to remove one of his hands was in his pocket. Again, raising, I guess, the threat level that this deputy is, I guess, internalizing right now. The deputy then was able to take the man into custody, all before backup arrived. Put him in cuffs, holstered his weapon, put him in handcuffs, completely diffused the situation before it got any worse. So what I wanted to highlight, though, is in that moment in time, the deputy could have thought about his own safety and waited for backup to arrive before approaching. However, he did not. Rather, the deputy chose to confront the man he heard arguing with an unknown person on the other side of the building. The deputy had no idea what he was going to find on the other side of that wall. It could have been the suspect pointing the gun at someone else. It could have been the suspect standing over someone he had just shot. What the deputy did in that moment was nothing short of courageous. The deputy chose to serve and protect his community, and he did so with little regard for his own safety. The suspect was searched. A single bullet was found on his person. As they continued to search for the weapon, they ended up finding it inside a car where he was standing at, where he was arguing with the guy on the phone. That was his car. The gun was inside in the car. It was a Glock 17, which fires 9mm ammunition, and the magazine was high capacity that held 28 rounds. That could have been fired that night, but because of this deputy's actions, was able to stop this from going further. The suspect is a 20-year-old male who was arrested and charged with 2 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon, as well as related felony firearms charges, and he currently awaits trial. So, again, I say that, this deputy did his job that night, and really no one outside of the law enforcement circle knows that, what danger that he was presented with and how he handled it, more impressively. Now, he's not going to get a lot of pat on the backs from police officers and cops, because that's what they do. And but I think it's important for the community to understand, like, that's one of those moments in time where if one thing goes wrong or something happens in the middle of the night, we're on CNN, being criticized. So I just wanted to let you guys know that happened here in Bedford Township. So again, not looking for a pat on the back, and I don't think that deputy is either, but I just wanted to let you guys know that was the case I chose for tonight. So other than that, do you guys have any questions for me?
No, we'll just keep plucking along on the speed signs and
Eventually.
get it on the future agenda.
Eventually. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so we have on, so both those presentations are obviously okay. Okay, number 5, public comment. Comments limited to 5 minutes for board agenda items only. Come on up. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to 8A, vouchers for payment. Ms. Hirschberger?
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $114,464.52. Fire District Fund, $6,088.55. Police Fund, $3,866.79. Park Operating Fund, $702.72. Downtown Development Authority, $79.23. Library Operating Fund, $11,306.30. Lewiston Estate SAD, $385. Sewer O&M Fund, $1,852.70. Trust and Agency Fund, $3,276 for a grand total of $142,021.81.
Support.
Okay, motion supported, Ms. Januzak. Discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8B, appointment to the Planning Commission. I am recommending the board appoint Fred Schwank to the Planning Commission, first term ending 12/31/22. Mr. Schwank is a graduate of the University of Michigan and holds a master's in business administration from Eastern Michigan. Mr. Schwank has an extensive business background and is a longtime resident of Bedford. With Mr. Schwank's education, business background, and knowledge of our community, he would be an excellent choice. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion?
Do we have any other applications? Fred's the only one in here.
Yeah, I believe there was probably some from,
They were
Older.
older, almost 2 years old.
Okay.
so.
No one current or reapplied?
No.
Okay. Good, Paul.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
Okay, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8C, appointment to the Compensation Committee. I am recommending to the board to appoint Steve Here to the Compensation Committee for a term ending 12/31/25. Mr. Here is filling the position vacated by Keith Godfrey.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Hirschberger. Discussion?
Same, Paul. Any other applications, or Steve was it?
Steve was it for compensation.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
And this one we're supposed to fill within 30 days. We haven't been able to do that because we haven't had anybody apply.
Okay. Thank you.
And you're going to find in the future for boards, it's hard to get people to apply. That was a rarity what happened a year ago. So it gets tougher and tougher. But, okay, so did you call the roll?
Mr. Peroni?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8D, appointment to the ARPA Advisory Committee. The ARPA Advisory Committee met on Monday, March 7th, 2022. During this meeting, we went over all the applications submitted for consideration to be appointed to the ARPA Committee. After reviewing all the applications, we would like to recommend Chase Canning for the available spot on the ARPA Committee. So that'll be my motion. Supported by Mr. Montroy. Discussion from the board? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peroni?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
Okay, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8E, approve a waiver from the 6-to-1 ratio for a land division for parcel 5802-028-053-05, 7723 Jackman Road. Anybody have any questions or comments on it?
Want to have the applicant come up, or do
What's that?
you want to have the applicant come up?
Oh, come on up.
I'm Brad Helm, 1860 Apple Creek Drive, Temperance. What we're looking to do is just split this parcel into the existing home plus 2 other parcels. The homeowner that's been there almost 30 years, we're going to build a new house on the one parcel. They just need to downsize and have less lawn to take care of. So 2 out of the 3 are conforming. It's just that last parcel that is not.
If nobody has anything, I'll make a motion.
Mr. Steiner?
So I do have a quick question. Noticing the width of the parcel, the variances, and of course I know you always want to try to keep straight lines the best you can, but any reason that that second property in the middle is 120 and this one's 80, why it wouldn't, I mean, you've got 176 basically on the first property, which is the current property. Why that wouldn't have been pushed over to make it a little bit more uniform?
We were just trying to utilize the existing home that's on the property, so the frontage, as they look out the front of the house, it doesn't have a house in its front yard. So we were trying to keep conforming, you know, and they're building a smaller house on the smaller parcel, just, you know, versus going to a condo, they were going to build there instead.
So obviously then parcel C, you're going to have a large house probably similar to this other way in the back.
At some point, the homeowner is going to keep that parcel, and then, you know, it's not going to be for sale or anything at this point. It's all woods, that third parcel, so it'll just stay that for now.
Yeah, that's the only question I had really was why, you know, it wasn't evened out a little bit more on that.
Just for that reason, because of the house. When you look out, it will look out straight through land versus the house.
So the third parcel's wood right now,
Correct.
and so that eventually could be sold for another house to be put on.
Correct.
Is that probably the direction we're going?
I would
The way
imagine
building
that,
and property is right now?
yes, but I know he's not going to, because I've actually asked him, I'll buy it, you know, because land is hard to get, but he's not interested in selling at this point. Because he's lived there almost 30 years, so he just wants to keep his land and then just sell the house off, which I think's 4 acres left.
Mr.
And just
Montre?
get more of a all one level home so that they can get around versus going upstairs to bedrooms and stuff.
Seems like we've been having a lot come through with variances and,
Depth to width,
what's that?
the depth to width.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the only time they come to us. Like, they just have to be approved by us if there's a waiver. So it's like, it just seems that way because that's what we see.
Just a matter of time for there to be another house on that split up, that third parcel.
Yeah.
Did you want to make a motion
Yeah,
still?
I'll make a motion to approve the waiver for a land division for parcel 5802-028-053-05 at 7723 Jackman Road as presented.
I'll support.
Just real quick, is this, Rick, is this within reason of what we've done in the past, or?
This one's probably a little bit longer with an 11-to-1.
Okay.
That's why I was asking the question, because I was doing some math and saw where you might get it, you know, closer to 8.5 and 9-to-1, moving 20 feet. So it really wasn't going to change a lot. You'd have either a 9 or an 11.
So it's not out of the realm what has been done in the past.
No.
I would say specifically, like if you turn the first page, there's like, you can see like those parcels along Jackman are, it's more consistent with like these parcels than it is as current, I would think.
Mr. Goldsmith?
One of the things you can look at too is whether or not you you enlarge the frontage of that last parcel, parcel C, doesn't make any substantial difference in how the property would be developed as a whole. You're going to have 3 houses there at some point in the future. And it's got the required frontage. And this one is, quite frankly, the depth to width ratio request is less than what the board has granted at some times in the past. And it really boils down to measuring the merits of each case as presented and whether or not and the ordinance states this, whether or not it fits within the character of the neighborhood. And I think that in terms of the character of the neighborhood, this fits. And again, it makes no difference in terms of units being developed. Whether you widen that 80-foot frontage or not, you're still going to have 3 homes there.
Okay. Any more comments? Questions? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye.
Okay, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8F, approve a waiver from the 6-to-1 ratio for a land division for parcel 5802-013-006-40 on Minks Road. Anybody have any comments or questions on this land division?
I have a comment, Mr. Supervisor, and I see Mr. Bankowski is here, and maybe he could approach the podium. This is a somewhat unique situation. We still have a number of areas in the township. They're less and less, but we still have a number of areas that are split zoned. And what I mean by that, and this is an example, the lot area near the road is zoned residential, and then the lot area to the rear, away from the road frontage, is zoned agricultural. And I think in your application, Bryce, you indicated that you want all of these resulting parcels to be used for residential purposes. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so to kind of take care of the situation where you have a split zone parcel, part of it being ag, part of it being residential, and in observing the character and nature of this particular neighborhood and all of the residential lots around it and the residential uses around it, what I would like to see in terms of a motion is that the applicant be required to make a deed restriction stating that the uses allowed on each of these resulting lots will be limited to those uses which are allowed within a residential zoning district. That way you can't have livestock and so forth and interfere with the quiet use and enjoyment of your neighbors, but all residential uses would be allowed. For instance, one of these lots, I think, is 5 acres, so if you meet the setbacks and so forth, you could have horses. That's allowed in a residential zoning district. So that would be my recommendation, and the way I would like that to be accomplished, if the board approves this request, is that if the division is approved tonight, that you have deeds prepared for each resulting lot and have the deed restriction placed on there that those lots may be used only for residential, for any and all uses allowed in that particular residential zoning district. And I think that's in keeping what you see as the development of these lots. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that's my comment, long as it was, sorry.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, I look for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the land division request for parcel 02-013-006-40 located on Minks Road with the 4 separate parcels. So the 4 separate parcels would be subject to all having their own deed restrictions. Also within the deed restrictions, it has to state that it is for residential purposes only and to fit the zoning as required, and no allowable livestock such as horses, etc., to be within the property within that residential district.
Rick, horses would be allowed as a permitted residential use if the area is 5 acres.
Oh, I thought you said to put it in there, though.
What I would like the deed restriction to state is each resulting parcel may only be used for those uses specifically allowed
Okay.
within the residential zoning district. I'm sorry, I
I
wasn't clear.
misunderstood you there,
I'm sorry.
so that's fine.
So I think on one parcel, you could have horses.
So you want to take his recommendation?
Yes,
Okay. Nancy, for the record.
I didn't want to say what he
Let's
said.
clean it up. There we go. We have a support.
Support.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Montry. Any more discussion? Okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8G, approve 4 change orders for the renovation of Fire Station 2. Welcome, Chris. Come on up.
Good evening, Chris Benson with Jacobs Architects, 25 Washington Street, Monroe. We have 4 change orders that have come up on Fire Station number 2. If you would like, I could go through each one and give a brief explanation.
Please do.
Okay. So starting with change order 5, this is the good one. The firemen decided that the 2 current offices that they have, which were going to be renovated into, or the finishes were going to be updated for 2 offices, they decided they would prefer that just to be one big open space. So the contractor ran through the numbers, and that's actually a credit of $22.79. That's the good news. Change order number 6, when they started the 2 rooms and the current day room, when they started the renovation process for those rooms, which we were going to be removing the ceiling and stuff, all of the renovated area was getting new electrical work. When they started in on those rooms, they discovered that when those rooms were furred out, because they were already drywalled, so we weren't going to touch that, we were just going to paint it and leave it as it is, all of the first stripping was put in horizontal, which meant they couldn't run new electrical wires. And then they were only first stripped with 1.5 inch or 1 5/8 inch metal studs in one and wood studs in the other. Therefore, it's not deep enough for an electrical box. So we had the contractor put the price together to strip those walls, which 2 of the walls had insulation, which was just the foam insulation of 1.5 inch. The rest of the walls in the current day room did not have any insulation in them when discovered when they were doing their investigative work. So we had the contractor put the price together to strip the walls, fur them out with 3.5 inch studs, put in 3.5 inches of insulation, new drywall, so that the electrical could be installed flush to the wall. Our only other choice would have been for the new electrical is for it to be surface mounted. Those rooms, so that price for that new work came to $5,841.73. Also on change order number 6, the storage room, which was not a part of our original work, when the fire suppression was being installed, it was discovered that that did not have a ceiling in it. Therefore, it would have been required to have multiple fire heads, to be able to cover the entire room. So rather, the cheaper option to that is to put a ceiling grid in, because your ceiling grid will have a 1-hour fire rated, so if a fire starts, the ceiling stops the spread. So therefore, they only had to put in 2 fire heads instead of, I think he said it was going to be 6. So that was the cheaper option of covering that room with the fire suppression. So adding a ceiling to that room came to $962.64. That's change order 6. Change order 7 came with, once they started, again, working in the original day room, once the walls come out and the ceiling comes out, that had a lay-in floor, floating floors, like the wood look floating floors. The firemen had done it, I don't know how long ago. The firemen had done it themselves and put that down. Once all the furniture was out and everything was moved, we were originally planning on not touching that, leaving that alone, because we were leaving the walls alone. The only thing we were doing in there was the electrical and the ceiling. Well, the floor was pretty bad once they moved their furniture. So We are suggesting that everything else in the place has a new floor, that we replace that floor as well, which is $2,613.20. Change order number 8. We are getting currently prices to redo all of the flat roofs out there. They are all at the end of their life. This was part of our original scope of work that we talked about getting done with Chief Adam, was getting a price for all the roofs. What we've discovered in having the contractor, try to get bids for this, there's a material shortage right now for flat roofs, mostly in the rigid insulation that goes down. So what we have here is a partial replacement. Again, once they started working in those lower roofs, it was discovered that the one that contained the 2 offices, the roof was leaking. So of course we don't want to have them finish off those rooms, put in new materials just to have a leaking roof on it. We did get a price to have the roof repaired, which was about $2,000, or replacing that roof, which was what our ultimate goal was anyway, for that flat roof, and that would be over the day room, which is going to be the new dispatch room, and the 2 current offices is $9,269.04. So that would take care of about a third of the flat roof. We're still working on getting pricing for the other parts of the roof, but what we're hearing is that even if we want to do the rest of those roofs, it's probably not going to happen until fall, possibly, with the material shortages. So as soon as we get those numbers for the remaining part of the flat roofs, we will bring them to you. We investigated the asphalt shingle roof. That currently has about 18 years left on its warranty, so we are not going to do anything to that roof. It does have some fascia that's rotted that we're also getting a price on, getting that repaired, removed and replaced. Part of change order 8 is a repair to the asphalt roof. There's currently a big ventilation, just the hood that's on the roof. Apparently at one time it was used kind of like an attic vent. I don't know if anybody has an attic vent, but it basically is a huge fan in the attic and it sucks the air all of it. Apparently when it was used for the festivities up there, they used to use that to keep the room refreshed. Well, that is also leaking air into the building now that we're trying to close it up. It's no longer in use. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but they do have bats. So come the springtime, they already have a company that's going to put a bat trap out there because they're coming up in the southwest corner of the building. And our fear is this hood is another place for the bats to get into the building. So we would like that removed, and then that section of the roof. It's about a 30-inch by 30-inch, maybe 3 by 3 big hood that sits on the back side of the roof. We'd like to get that removed and that roof replaced to get that all closed in. That work is $1,591.37. Any questions?
Mr. Steiner?
Just a quick question.
Yep.
So, you're going to go forward with this one portion of the roof, and you said probably a good 2/3 of it probably fall.
Well, no, it's about 1/3 of it.
Or I'm finishing.
Oh,
2/3 of it are left over
I'm sorry.
to finish.
Yeah.
What in your opinion, is there an option that we could change without getting too costly to go away from a flat and to try to do something a little different?
We could look into it to see what that would cost. And quite honestly, off the top of my head, I couldn't even remotely give you a number. But that would involve having trusses and, all of that kind of stuff,
But it maybe not even full truss. Maybe if you did like a slanted instead of a flat, not full truss, but maybe even a slanted roof, so you could have at least the runoff part.
Right. It is something we could look into. I know the tallest apparatus bay, that would be an easy one to do. The little ones are a little more complicated because one of them's kind of trapped in the middle of the building.
Yeah.
So to put some kind of pitch on that, it would be a little more difficult because, like I said, it's trapped in the middle. But I mean, we could take a look at that.
The problem is with that, though, we would have to table this item.
Right.
You know.
And our biggest concern right now is we do have an active leak.
I'm just
going.
saying because that's not even part of this scope right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
No,
that for future.
Right. And we could actually look at the remaining 2 apparatus bays and seeing what we could do with those roofs, because those sit up higher, so they are independent, and one probably sits up maybe 3 feet higher than the other, so they're actually could be independent of each other. But we could most certainly look and see what that would, cost to do that versus the cost of a flat roof.
I wasn't talking about changing this at all. I was just talking future reference for when we get those other needs to replace.
Yeah, we can most certainly look and just get some ballpark numbers.
Doesn't hurt to look.
No.
Never does. Always look at all your options.
That's all I had.
Okay, any more comments, questions? Mr. Montre?
Can you clarify what I think is probably a misunderstanding on my part? I thought you had said that all of the roofing would be included in the scope of work originally, but then why would this not be included in that then?
Yeah, I probably confused you. So originally when we were working with Adam, he had said that he wanted to get a price for all of the roofing. We put out the package for the interior renovation first, then created a roofing package to go out independently from that. So it was work that, like the wish list, this was all the work that we would like to get done, but we started with just the interior package, and that was the original contract amount, and that's why these are coming back as change orders.
Okay. So the rest of the roofing, you were saying it would in a separate project.
Correct.
In a separate project, this all would have been included, but that doesn't exist.
Right.
That's
And
not
that's
included in
what-
this scope of work. This is all
Correct.
interior. Okay.
Yeah, and so
Thank
what we had the contractor doing was contacting different roofing companies, and that's kind of the story we're getting is materials are short, materials are short. Well, one of the roofers said he could come up with enough, and it really comes down to that rigid insulation is the biggest hang up is what I'm hearing. And that roof over top of the 2 offices had no insulation in it, so we definitely had to have it. It's not something we could find an alternative for. He found that he could come up with enough materials for those 2 roofs, but the other 2 bigger ones he could not come up with right now. So they are still working on seeing what they can get and when they can get it. And I don't have any answers for the rest of the roofs. I do know that talking with Doug Steinman that there is a leak that is between the 2 apparatus bays, and if there's a good thing is it's not anywhere near all of our new construction. So we are going to look into that to see is that an easy repair. If it's leaking between the 2 structures, it sounds like it's probably something that goes up the wall that we might be able just to put a patch on and get through until we can get those 2 roofs done.
Okay. All right. Mr. Sperger?
Could we have Bob,
Yeah.
sorry, Bob come up and talk about the financing, because I want the board to understand where the financing is, because when we set this project in motion, it was going to be done in phases. So it seems like now phase 1 and 2 were meshed together, and it wasn't completely budgeted for. So go ahead.
Yep. So what we found was that those was going to be done in phases. Phase 1, they estimated about $341,000, and that's what Adam budgeted for. He budgeted for $350,000. Then we have a phase 2, which is also included interior level, which is about another $500,000. So in total, it's about $800,000 and some change. Going through more of Adam's records and past board meetings and notes, we did find that, I'm looking for that, he had a schedule that ran out several years to fiscal year 27. In there, it appears that he had $350,000 budgeted for fiscal year 2022 and $100,000 budgeted each year after. We can only guess that he intended to finance up front. to pay for this. And that's where we're at now. I do have another comment here. One comment I did find in one of his notes, it says, within the next few months, he will be looking for direction from the township board as to the township whether they would prefer to take advantage of low interest rates for the loan through financing or do it in phases throughout the year. It appears he never came back to the board to look for that direction.
Okay. Bob, what do we currently have in our rainy day fund?
For the general
the
fund
general.
or for the fire fund?
General fund.
I can tell you, but I gotta go back and get my folder.
Okay.
Well, he's grabbing that. A thought that I had was as far as, is there something in this? I know a lot of times when we get bids, there's a percentage, like not to exceed. Is there anything, because we're at like 10% right now, like as of, like if we approved all of these tonight, that's at 10% of the.
I think it's more for SADs.
Yeah. And this, as many orders as we change, would change the amount. So we just start with
That
their
would be-
original bid, and then the more change orders, the more it goes up.
Like if we put that in a motion for the bids not to exceed this, and it, it did, then we could, this is a little different.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
End of fiscal year 2022, if we follow the budget as planned, we would expect to have a $4 million fund balance,
Okay.
remaining fund balance,
Okay.
in the general fund.
In the general fund. Okay. So that would be my motion, is that we just pay for it out of the general fund, rainy day fund, and not worry about loans. We're not talking millions of dollars. We're talking, we have the money.
Well, I would like to run cash flows and stuff like that, just
Yeah.
to confirm.
Mr. Steiner.
Out of that 4 million, how much is encumbered out of that 4?
Is this something that can be used out of ARPA funds?
That would be a question for the committee, but yes, it would qualify, but the committee would have to discuss it, and I got to get the balance sheet
Well.
for your question.
So if we
Just
paid
take
for
your
it
whole
out of the
folder
general
up there.
fund, ARPA money we could replace for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
ARPA
Yeah.
could reimburse.
Right.
So
Okay.
I just say we pay for it, and if we can get it reimbursed from ARPA, we go that route.
Track of what we're designating to the ARPA. We say that a lot. You start keeping track of that.
Bob's keeping track of all that, right, Bob?
See if it's easier
All of our
for 1 or
designations for
2,000,
ARPA.
1 or 200.
I think Nicole might be able to answer that one.
Good job, Bob.
Yes. Encumbered, we have $6,500 for indigent residents, $30,000 for prepaid costs, the reserve for the building inspection department of $405,000, and then $700,000 for debt retirement. That's what we're holding in reserve.
So you're about 1,
Yep.
1.3 million. Okay.
Plenty of money.
There's never plenty.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
So, Adam had budgeted 350, right?
For the current fiscal year.
Okay. The total, and he has budgeted 100,000 for this fiscal year.
350 for this fiscal year, 100,000 going out through FY27. That's as far as I
Okay.
could find.
Okay. So 350 plus 100 then. So we would need to come up with the difference.
No extra 100, 350 for this year.
Okay.
So right now, we're short about 318,000, roughly.
Will this be landing within this fiscal? Like this project is going to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So way before.
All the changes.
I'll make a motion, we pull the funds out of the rainy day fund, and the amount is that you said 318,000?
Well, we just could bring a change order. As long as the board is agreeing to that, we'll just bring a change order
Okay.
back. So that doesn't need to be a motion right
Okay.
now.
And then we'll look at ARPA funds to reimburse. Bob, take note of that for ARPA.
Nikki?
Nick, you
Nikki's
need
the
a pen?
chair.
Nikki, take note of that.
I'm just a member of the committee.
I'll write it down.
Okay, Krista, she's got it. Okay, all right, thank you, Bob. Moving on, we'll look for a change order then. Okay. Okay,
Well, we got to make motions on these.
On the change.
We're gonna-
yep.
4.
Do you need 4 separate motions?
That's what we were just asking, if we can do it in one.
Should have 4.
Can we just say that it's change order 5,
If
6,
you-
7, 8, and
yes,
then with that,
If you specify each change order.
Trudy, you should make the motion.
okay. I make a motion that we approve change order 5 in the amount of negative 2279.
Support.
Wait,
Hold on,
or
she's
keep
going
going.
through
Change order 6 in the amount of $6,804.37. Change order 7 in the amount of $2,613.20. And change order 8 in the amount of $10,860.41, all as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of Mr. Januzak. Any more discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Prony?
Aye. Motion passed 7-0. Item 8H, approved proposal for the recruiting of a new fire chief. So my office has spent last couple weeks researching and going through finding some reputable companies to help us find a new fire chief, and I think we've come up with some good stuff. Has everybody had time to go through all the bids and kind of look and get an idea of what we were looking at? So we did just a couple notes. We did call the 2 firms outside of and all the references, and got positive reviews. Nothing negative. On McGrath specializes in the public sector, including recruiting fire. Dr. McGrath is a retired fire chief, and his firm offers full-service recruiting that includes assessments and background checks. Assessment person is Chief Stride, and he is an instructor as well. And there was no adverse comments about that. GovHR, they're in business 11 years, specializing in public sector, including fire and police. They offer assessment and background checks as well. The owner, Miss Verhees, is a past village manager and certified female business enterprise. Tim Sashko is the vice president of the and past fire chief. They offer 360 evaluation and 6 months after a new chief is hired. Both firms are highly qualified people doing the recruiting and are, in my opinion, pretty much equal. And like I said, there was no negative feedback for either firm when calling the recommendations. So, Mr. Steiner?
So I pretty much read these things word for word, and I'd like to just see if anybody else sort of agrees with my thought process. As I went through the detail portion of McGrath, it seemed like they were looking for or wanting more inclusive of this board membership to be involved with that process. Did anybody else take that from their write-up?
A little bit, but I think, we will though, somewhat.
Right, but I mean, it's not like we're going to
That's
sit
kind of
down and have
what I
meetings constantly
Yeah.
with them, but it seemed like they highly encouraged that. I mean, the other company showed that they could do some things too, but it seems like the McGrath company seemed like they really tried to promote that, of the inclusiveness of this board or the hiring body to be involved in the process. And that's something, like I mentioned early on, that's what we need, is somebody that can bring us in so we're all on the same page at all times. Again, not one of us up here is qualified individually to hire a fire chief. We're not firefighters, we're not past fire chiefs, et cetera. I think either company could do it. I seem to think that the McGrath Consulting Group seems a little bit stronger in their hiring process and the inclusiveness of this particular body to be part of it.
I get that, Rick. I mean, they specifically have in here a section on client input.
Yeah.
When I was reading that on page 4. And I definitely want to have as much input as we can.
Mr. Montre?
Yeah, I think they're all, I think all three companies, I think, are plenty qualified. My thought was, do we want to establish our committee before, I think there's a lot of money here. This is spending a lot of money to find this individual. And I've been thinking a lot about just like the return on investment in that regard. And I don't know, that's what I wanted to put to the board and see what you guys thought about if it would behoove us to establish our committee before choosing the firm and then in getting input from the committee as far as like what firm we're choosing and what route we're taking with whatever firm we're choosing.
So you're saying put together a committee outside of this board?
I think it looks like there's the other two are almost expecting GovHR and McGrath. It looked like both of them are almost expecting us to have a committee of some sort. Like
Committee should be the
from
board.
well,
Yeah.
I mean a committee from I don't know if it's our firefighters, like people like I'm pretty sure that it seems like they're looking for both of these, the GovHR and McGrath. I believe we're both looking for, a separate committee beyond our board that they're working with.
Ms. Hirschberg is actually next. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
She had her hand up.
I didn't get that. Maybe I missed it. I think the two that we're both discussing do have involvement with this board. I am leaning towards the GHR because there's so much more they offer in their screening, and there's only a $3,000 difference, and they include everyone. This board, they interview the board, they talk to firemen, they try and get a basis of what they're looking for before they even go out there. I read them all in detail too. That's one I'm leaning towards in my evaluation of the two companies.
Well, when I was looking at GovHR versus McGrath,
Mr. Gore, he did have his hand up.
my apologies. I didn't-
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But we probably should
Okay.
do that though. I mean, that way
So,
I don't pass over people.
Again, where I was going there with the assessment center testing, McGrath also says the makeup of the assessment team will consist of 2 or 3 retired or active fire and EMS officers, 1 or 2 human resource specialists, facilitator, team of 4 or 5 consultants, et cetera. But then right below that, during the assessment center, the candidates will have downtime and it can be filled in by with interviews by other stakeholders such as fire department officers, employee groups, community panel, et cetera. So that's where I take that they would be drawing if we wanted to have somebody from this board or assigned to be part of that process. So they'd still be drawing those kind of people in to have the input with this process.
Mr. Gore?
I just like the idea that McGrath, Mr. McGrath, is a retired fire chief where GovHR does not offer that. I would like somebody that's been in the field and has been a fire chief, and I'm leaning more towards the McGrath.
Another thought that I had, and I don't know how appropriate that is, if it, again, another thing to establish that I don't know if it would be wise for us to establish a salary scale of some regard to have an idea where we're having the best. You can have, like I said, I've been thinking about this a lot, like as far as just the ROI on it. If, spend for what? Like and I don't know why we're not talking about Endeavous at all. Their highest level package or whatever is $10,000 less than GovHR and $8,000 less than McGrath. And that's where my thought was, if we established our own subcommittee of sorts to, I don't know, like to work with the firm, I would think we would be able to work, we would be getting input from people closer to the situation.
Well, I would think if the board did decide to go that way, we already have a fire advisory board.
Is
set
that
up.
their purpose, though? Is
No,
the fire
we could
advisory
make it their
board?
purpose.
Well, I mean, yeah,
You know,
I don't
if we
know if
wanted
that's not
to-
a bad place to start. But you spend, I mean, how much? What is the level difference between? And that's part of the reason why I think you need to establish a salary idea at the very least. Is we're going to spend $25,000 to find the best fire chief in the world. The best fire chief in the world might be out of our budget. How much? What are we planning on paying the best fire chief in the world? Are we willing to pay for the best fire chief in the world? And I think that those kind of things need to be considered before we just go, let's use, like, I wouldn't disagree that, like, to say GovHR is necessarily, like, I don't know. I think that they all seem good. I don't think we're going wrong necessarily any choice, but do we need the best of the best for what we're filling? I think an example that I thought of was, what was our process for finding Bob? You could have spent $25,000. You weren't finding Bob, in my opinion. We didn't spend $25,000 and we found Bob. And now I'm not saying you don't, like that you're not using anything. I'm just saying, like, because you have to, because of the nature of the position, you're going to have to look outside of the community more than likely. I would personally prefer for a position like this, someone inside the community if it was possible, because I think that would make it more likely to avoid the situation that we just went through. But yeah, that's my thought as far as the ROI on what we're spending versus what we're getting, and how much of a difference does it make, and what are we actually looking for, if that makes sense.
Mr. Steiner?
So, obviously, no disrespect to the search for Mr. Miller, because he turned out to be a fabulous candidate. We could have hired him. He could have been a terrible hire. You just don't know.
And then we could have fired him, and then you find somebody else.
But, and again, take this completely different than Mr. Miller as a finance manager dealing with money. Granted, he's got to make sure he's doing his job right for the township. A fire chief, totally different than a finance guy. The fire chief has personal lives at stake. He's got the entire 30,000 plus population. He's got his fire crews, his EMS, his teams, that he's responsible for those people. Mr. Miller he's responsible for, $4.5 million budget. That could get us in trouble too if he was terrible.
Actually, I'm responsible for that.
Well, but you can't do his job. Neither can I. How's that? But the one thing, and we're looking at 3.5 months out minimum to go through this entire process. Then if we go try to establish another subcommittee, and that subcommittee takes however much time, and they think they know what we want, then they come back to this board, and this board says, no, that's not exactly what we want. Now we go back again, back and forth. I think we're gonna waste a lot of valuable time. The other thing is, once we select a company, that's when we tell them the price range we want. We don't want to sit here today and say, oh, well, we want to pay a guy $50,000 or pay a guy $250,000, because you don't know who's going to apply. Somebody might apply thinking, okay, it's a good-sized township, but it's not a city of 200,000 people either. So I think that's something that this board can establish, and we can guide the 3 people that are in here full-time that will probably talk to one of these companies the most.
Yeah, and there's always somebody out there that's ready for that stepping stone. That's been involved for a long time, has credentials, and is ready to run a department. But to find that, you really have to hire a company. And I'm not saying for sure which one we need to roll with right now, but I think from going from the past, and I think some of these newer ones are standing.
And my
out a
last
little
comment
bit
on that
different.
too is McGrath
Sure.
also they've got 2 fire chiefs involved, not just the one. So
Yeah.
the second person is also previous fire chief with 37 plus years.
Mr. Matre.
The reason for establishing the salary, at least realm prior, is to help make a better decision on how much money you're going to spend finding the fire chief. If this board is willing to pay $150,000 a year for the best fire chief in the world, then maybe we should go spend all the money to find the best fire chief in the world. But if we spend $25,000 to find the best fire chief in the world, and then the best fire chief in the world says it's going to cost me $150,000, you're going to cost you guys $150,000 for me, then we're going to go, yeah, we don't. Well, we're not doing that. Maybe we didn't need to spend the money initially, as far as like what we're trying to find. Like, I think we're trying to find a good fire. And Devis found us our last fire chief, who I thought did a pretty good job overall. Obviously, there's the like recent events that were more personal in nature than job description, but found you a good fire chief for 5 years, as opposed to, so that's $12,000 as opposed to $22,000 to find maybe a really, really good one that stays for 3 years or stays for, like, there's a lot of consideration, I think, to be taken as far as like what we're not just choosing which is the best here. I don't think. I think that's a different, if the salary, I think specifically if the salary wasn't needed to be considered, then we would want the best. But I think that what we're willing to pay for a salary does need to be taken into consideration.
Well, I would think that the recruiting firm and any applicants are going to kind of look at what's been done for the last 10 years and kind of have an idea that they're not coming to Ann Arbor. They're coming to a smaller community, of 31,500, and they're really probably not going to expect this board to double the salary at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's going to be, that's kind of been established at that point. But, for me, I don't think the guy being a fire chief is like a deal breaker, to go with the company. I think it's more of a person that's, finding somebody with the proper skills, leadership skills, qualifications. You know what I mean? I think so. To me, just because you're a fire chief, I don't think it's going to help you find a better fire chief personally, but just my
I
thought.
would much rather have a fire chief or two former fire chiefs guiding me through this process than a public management consulting firm, in my opinion.
Yeah. You never know, those fire chiefs. Krista?
Well, if you look, Tim Sashko or whatever, he is a retired he's a retired vice president. He's a 38-year veteran of the fire service, and if you look at his professional background, he was a fire chief, emergency management coordinator. for a couple of those years. So he does have experience as well as being a fire chief. So they do have that as well under the Gov HR. So they're not just the consultant. They do have.
Yeah. And to me, after, going through these, like Mr. Steiner said, Gov HR kind of stands out to me a little bit, so.
I express no opinion on any of these applicants, but before we get too far along in the discussion of forming committees, I'm going to make a recommendation. You can accept it or not, but I think each of the elected officials should make a time commitment to be totally invested into this project and not form committees, and I'll tell you why. Once you start forming committees, and those committees start making recommendations to the full board, you run the risk of deliberation and decision-making outside of a public meeting. And that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So to avoid even the appearance of impropriety and to keep everything, all decisions made here in this boardroom by the entire board, I recommend that you not form committees, that you become invested, you have committee of the whole meetings to discuss these matters if it's going to be more time consuming, and that you make decisions collectively as the elected officials. And if that takes meetings with your consultant to discuss issues such as what are the salary ranges that are going to be offered or that we will offer as a board, you do that collectively as a board with the consultant. And when it comes time to make the final decision, each of you will possess the knowledge that everyone else on this board possesses, and you don't have to rely on a recommendation from a committee, which could be viewed as just rubber stamping a decision made by a committee, which the Michigan appellate courts have held to be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So it doesn't really have anything to do with your decision tonight or when you make your decision on the consultant that you choose, but I wanted you to have that framework as you're thinking about it, because I think that's the direction you should go. That's all.
Any more comments?
I like McGrath. That's where I'm at.
I have maybe a question for the board. Do we not think that Endeavus would be able to find us a quality fire chief within our price range? I feel like that's kind of where my head's at as far as like what we're looking at, because of the significant price difference in services, and that we've worked with them prior. I don't remember hearing any issues. Like I thought it was a pretty good experience as far as I've heard. Obviously I wasn't involved, but for the price difference, I don't know if we don't think that they would be able to find us a quality candidates within our price range.
I just don't think that's their expertise. At the end of the day, I think
Ours was the first one.
ours was the first one. I think, to quite honestly, we got lucky, with such a qualified candidate. I just personally, I wanted to go with somebody, that.
Well,
their expertise is in.
We'll put it there. I agree. I agree that I personally liked McGrath. I think if I had to, I think it's splitting hairs to say which one seemed that much better than the other. I thought they all, these two seem exceptionally qualified. I just think it's a different conversation than, are you just picking the best thing, or
Well, we can go to their levels too, Craig. We can go to their levels too, because they've got multiple levels. So even if we didn't want to go to the 23, you can go to the medium level as well.
Well, that's where I felt like the highest level from Endeavus was like getting their effort. I don't know.
I'm all about saving money and protecting the budget. However, there are some things that important decisions that you have to spend a little bit more money. And this is an extremely important decision for our community.
I agree.
And I don't see any reason to cut corners on something like this and save
Are you going to
few
cut
$1,000s.
Are you going to cut corners on the salary when you find Superman? That's the question.
We will have to discuss salary because it's going to cost.
It's going to cost. It's going to cost one way or the other.
Yes.
Just how much?
Yeah.
You find
There'll be negotiations, just like
Yes.
when we had to do school superintendents. We've been, Joe and I both have been on those.
Been
boards
through
before.
3 of those.
So it's not, it is what it is.
We'll get a package if we find a chief. They're going to submit their package to us, and we look at it that way.
So with,
Rick has something.
Can I just bring up one more thing?
go ahead.
Looking at comparing the two, and I know, Craig, we're not looking at the one you're kind of looking at right now. But another thing, when you look at McGrath, remember, they don't even do criminal background checks. Where the other company is going to do a range of checks. The background check is the responsibility of the client. So if you want background checks on the prospective fire chief, that we're talking about all this money we're going to have to pay for them, I think that should be important to us. Especially if they're coming from somewhere else and we don't even know them. Just my opinion.
Mr. Steiner?
Just real quick, again, when it comes to the salary range, they're going to look at what we pay today. And the company that we choose, they're going to come back and they're going to tell us, they're going to say, you need to be between here, what you were paying today, and here. Because, again, we don't want to set that number up there, because what if you set the number up here and you have a candidate that's willing to say, I'd like this job and I want to come in here? Well, if you've already put that high number out there, he's going to come in and ask for that high number. So, again, that'll be something to work with whichever company selected. I'm sure they're going to guide us to because they're going to look and say what's out there. And they're going to say, this is what a community your size has been paying. And this is probably where you're going to need to be. And then that's where it comes into the negotiation process of finding someone. And they'll tell the candidates that the price is going to be in this range.
There's probably going to be 3 or 4 candidates that will be submitted with a salary package. Those
Correct.
candidates will bring a salary package, and then we'll have to look at those.
Yeah.
You looking for a motion, Paul, for a company, or?
Yeah, if somebody wants to make a motion. Ms. Hirschberger?
Probably not going to get this, but I'm going to make a motion that we go with GovHR for their full scope proposal. I'm confident that they would bring us a good recruit, and I'm pushing for them because I want all these background screenings that the other company is not going to do, and I think that's important.
Okay, do we have a support?
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Janaszek. Any more discussion? None? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janaszek?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
No.
Mr. Steiner?
No.
Mr. Bruning?
No,
Mr. Montroy?
no.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye. Okay, the motion failed 4-3. Okay, I look for another motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the McGrath Consulting Group for our choice for the fire chief.
Which package?
Let's go to the top package,
You're talking about the full package.
full package.
The executive package, executive recruitment.
I remembered one of the, I don't know if they're, I'll wait for,
I'll support.
I remembered one of the reasons why I was personally would have been leaning more toward McGrath was the assessment center fee with GovHR was a separate, like another $7,500 separate fee on top of the full 23 grand package. Okay. But that was just another thing I was looking for.
So you like it combined, Craig, the combined executive?
If that's,
Yeah.
is that what you're saying? That's what you're saying, right?
That's what I thought we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking right here.
No,
Okay, so you want to remake a motion?
no, I think that's what he
Or do
made
you
his
want
mo,
the,
that's what his motion
friendly
was.
amendment? Or do you want a new motion?
Yeah, you want a new
Or a
motion?
friendly amendment?
Friendly
or-
amendment.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'll make the friendly amendment for the combined executive recruitment assessment center.
Another thing to consider is on the last page of McGrath, if we're in discussion,
No,
McGrath.
do we have a full motion in support with the amendments? And you accept the amendments?
Yeah, I motion, Joe supported, so I think we
Okay.
Accept the
All right.
amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, discussion?
Okay, so on the last page of McGrath, costs do not include advertisement, anything, any other associated costs, which I think in GovHR, I think the advertisement was included as far as them like spending ad money to get the word out, I believe.
And they were advertising in more places.
Yes, but it was included, correct?
Correct.
So I don't know what McGrath how that's going to work with McGrath. I didn't see. It just says that it's not, advertisement was not included. So I don't know what
Well, we'll find out.
where we're at with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is
All right.
it-
Any more discussion?
Paul,
Mr. Goldsmith?
I will suggest that if you're going to choose McGrath, that, and I don't know if they'll negotiate, but like Trudy said, the GovHR has an extensive background screening, which in this day and age is important. Very important, because it's important to law enforcement, because you have people jumping around, and maybe they're jumping because they've had issues at their prior employer. So I don't
And
know.
we
if
can't, I mean, how far are we going to be able to go with it?
Can't, I only can do Michigan.
So.
Yeah, I mean, they do a pretty extensive GovHR. I can do a Michigan criminal background check. That's pretty straightforward and easy to do. But so what I'm suggesting is that, if we could negotiate, if you want McGrath, maybe we could negotiate with them for within their quote for them to do something very similar to what GovHR is going to do, or find out how much additional they would charge for it, because I think that's important.
And right now, the difference is only $3,000 between the two firms.
But if we add that 7,500 into GovHR, they're close to 30. For the assessment
7,500
center.
For what?
The assessment center.
Assessment Center on page 16 of their packet.
It's optional.
Right, that was not included in the 23,000.
What page is it?
Page 16, it's optional.
McGrath may do the background search.
It says they
may, they don't hold themselves out as offering that as part of the package, but they may do it if asked to do it.
Yeah, but are they set up to do it?
Yeah, well,
like this
that's-
company, they're advertising it,
Yeah,
but
that's
Criminal
that's
McGrath is criminal background check responsibility of the client.
yeah.
We only can do
which
for
we can't
Michigan.
really,
Only do in
but how
Michigan.
deep are we going to go with that? Are you going to be calling ex-employees? You're going to be doing research to find out what issues we could stumble, you know what I mean? There's more to just going on
Well, that's
mugshots.
what they were going to do.
Yeah.
They
Well,
had
we have a
to say-
motion and a support, and, ours failed, so.
Yeah, that's my problem with these guys.
Okay. All right, could you call the roll, please? Is this somebody in particular want to call McGrath and talk to him about it? Whether they can do a background check?
More extensive than just
More
a back
extensive? I mean,
national.
I'll take a shot at it and give him a call.
Let's see what we can find out.
I can,
Negotiate.
Joe, if you want. I will call him and talk to him if you want.
If you want to call and talk to him, I can call and talk to him. I won't negotiate any price because I can't, but
It might be with Joe's law enforcement background, if he's willing to do it, he'd be
Yeah.
a great person to do it.
I'll talk to him.
All right, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
No.
Mr. Montry?
Nay.
Hirschberger votes no. Mr. Peroni?
No. Motion failed.
I don't think we need it.
Okay, all right. What's the pleasure of the board? Would you like to table it and come to a next meeting with some more information?
You want me to make an Endeavor
No.
motion?
Let's table it and come back, but we're going to have to get something going.
Well, yeah. Mr. Keen's back there going, oh.
What are we tabling it for, though? What are we trying to accomplish?
Well, we've had two failed motions.
I know.
And we can't
But
keep-
what are we going to accomplish by bringing it back?
Maybe if they do the background checks, that would suffice the people that
It would be
didn't-
more than background checks I would be looking for.
Well, I'm saying maybe they could go find out if they can do some
still
extensive
gonna give 'em a
background
call.
checks, get a price, and come back to the next board meeting. Then,
Are you going to call them, Joe?
I'll call.
Can you compare it to the GHR, what they do? Please?
Can, but I have no interest ever in GS.
No, I'm just
Zero
saying,
interest
if
in
you
them
look
also.
in them,
We can
it
go
says what kind of background they will do.
Okay.
If you could compare it to what they're doing, the screening, or what they offer.
Joe, you're in trouble. You weren't talking into the microphone.
I'm sorry. I might get the evil eye.
You're in trouble. He came out of the office. That means that you. Okay, so we're going to table this and move on to.
Then I
the
need a
next-
motion to table.
Motion to table till the next
Second.
meeting. Supported by Mr. Gore. Discussion. Seeing none, could you call the roll?
Mr. Peroni?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
No.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek? Aye. Hirschberger votes aye.
And motion passed 6-1. Okay. Number 9, comments from the public. Comments limited to 2 minutes for each individual. Oh, boy.
Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. 2 weeks ago, I stood here and suggested strongly, as Mr. Goldsmith has said tonight, why don't you people have a meeting of the whole? I've heard 5 different issues that have come up tonight, and you can take your time and discuss them. You can't get anything, you can't have any votes, but you can surely hash out some of these issues. Mr. Montry has an issue. The clerk has an issue. We've heard others take, like here, we all have problems on this thing. This is one of the most important decisions that you're going to make. The safety of this community will be in the hands of the person you select. So understand how you're going forward. Have a meeting of the whole, as Mr. Goldsmith suggested, and I suggested 2 weeks ago. The whole board sits down and hashes out the issues. Then you can come to this meeting rather than spend 45 minutes, which you ended up saying, well, let's delay this. It's a waste of time, energy, and resources. Number 2, forget the speed signs. I live at the intersection of Stearns and Secor. Now, those who observe the sign will see the nice green sign says thank you and nice. People who go over the speed limit, that sign goes out faster than that light up there in the emergency room. I don't see anyone putting their brakes on. I think that's a good idea. At least it points out that you're speeding, but there's no penalty. Nobody puts on their brakes. The right turn signs that just came up. I called the road commissioner and said, why don't you put some flags on them so people see them? Because they do what? They turn right. Road commissioner said, well, that's against the law. Oh, boy. The people who did that didn't know that? This is no different than the...
Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Any more comments from the public?
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. My comments were in regards to the committees. I'm not certain why the 1 year we had a whole lot of places that needed to have a whole lot of people. Why not have, did I miss it in the consent agenda early? at the end of last year or this year where we had all the committees presented and the positions all at status quo and approved.
Hey, guys, can you wait till after the meeting?
Can
Sorry
I
about
get
that.
an extra 2 seconds?
Yes, you can.
At any rate, I think that's what we should do, is have the committees presented as they stand, and then the board say, okay, these are good, status quo, and this is where we need to have some people. Granted, these people bumped off for whatever reasons they had to be, but usually we were getting a whole pool of people, and I didn't see any extras, and if there were, then they should have been presented. So I'm assuming there's not one application in this township for any type of a committee of any sort. I'm going to mimic Mr. Lamar. Those speed signs, we're wasting our money. You know, if they're going to do a traffic control thing with the other people for things such as distracted driving, then they need to be doing that for speeding. Those signs are expensive. We should not be paying for the schools. They have their own monies. And we don't need them in Temperance. We need police officers. This morning I had a person pass a bus in the no passing zone. Today, coming to the meeting here, I stopped on a yellow light and had a motorcyclist who was wearing nothing but a gray beanie on his head pass me in the left turn lane through a red light. So we're lucky that I didn't have to pick up the brains and bring them into the meeting with me. This is we've become lawless in this township for whatever reason. And I'm not perfect, but I don't see those, and I also
you
don't
for
see
your
the right
comments,
turn
Ms. King.
signs. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Ken Gagne, 8311 Lambert Street. I wasn't going to say anything, but I am concerned about why the Bedford Township is going to get in with the school. I was at a school board meeting just before the offices, well, the same night the offices were sold on Stearns. It was said how much money the school board has. I'm not going to mention it. And how much money the building was sold for. I think if I've got nothing against these speed signs. If you want to put them up, fine. But I think the school has got sufficient money to pay for their own. I don't think the township has to kick in on 12 signs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Josh Nieder, course 7948 Wiseman Road, Lambertville. As regards to hiring the fire chief, I echo the clerk's words about doing an extensive background check. Don't know where you're getting a fire chief from. Who knows who it's going to be. Try to see if McGrath might do that, but if not, I think a good background check would be good so we can avoid the issues of the last fire chief possibly. I mean, you have a township of 32,000 plus residents, still growing, place where families choose to raise their kids, and I would like to reside here permanently. So as far as keeping this township safe and on all these main roads, and being that this township is the largest suburb of the Toledo area, try to keep it safe. You have about 60 or so members on the fire department too they have to watch out for. So just try to pick somebody that's wise and do a full check on them. And then also, as far as those speed signs, I think they're a good idea. People that can check themselves. I'm speeding, got to slow down. Caught myself once or twice. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Have a great night.
Good evening, Logan Tisdale, 1308 Brandywine Street. August 2, 2022 is the primary election for the state of Michigan. This is an extremely important primary. Bedford Township has been fortunate the last 4 elections we've had someone from this township represent us at the state level. And we have that unique opportunity again in Mr. Peroni. I'm confident Mr. Peroni will not only represent Bedford Township, but also the other areas within the 30th district of this state. With his level of professionalism that he's demonstrated as a township trustee and now as our township supervisor. This primary is crucial. People need to get out and to vote in the primary. I know my wife and I hope to see Mr. Peroni on the November ballot, And we wish you God's favor in your campaign. And I hope to see that the other residents in this township see the same thing that my wife and I do, that you are the candidate to represent us in the state. This is an important position. We can't overlook this. We know who you are. We know what you've done over here in the past. And I'm confident that you'll represent us with a quality representation in the state. So I just wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Have a great night. Any more comments? Okay. Board members' comments. Mr. Montre?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Mr. Steiner?
I'll pass tonight.
Okay. Mr. Gore?
Oh, just everybody have a good evening. Thanks for coming out.
Mr. Bruning?
Nothing to add tonight. Starting to get nice out, so the parks will be opening soon, everybody.
Okay. Ms. Janizek?
I know I said last week, or 2 weeks ago, to congratulate the wrestlers. I would like to congratulate Raleigh Denker for taking first place at individual wrestling states, Tyler Borst for taking 5th place, and my son Brock for taking 7th place. I also would like to congratulate the other teams who are going on to states as well. That's all I got.
Okay. Ms. Hirschberger?
Just want to remind everyone that our cemetery cleanup will be started this week. Please remove anything that you want to keep from the grave sites. Everything will be done by April 1st, so if anyone wants to put something out for Easter, they will be done by then.
Okay. I echo what Ms. Janizek said about our wrestlers. It's a real great achievement to become a state champion. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication. And obviously, what this board has been through, I think background check probably is extremely important. I think if we got a call from another fire department, about a fire chief, it might have been different in the hiring process up north. So it's very important. There's a reason that we don't have separate meetings and committee of the whole meetings for everything. I think it's important. That's why we keep the agenda light, so the public can see us deliberate and make tough decisions. I know 45 minutes to sit here and listen to us squabble sometimes about things is tough, but I think it's important for the public to see that we don't do things behind closed doors. We don't make deals like that. So we do what we do in the public, and it's obvious we don't talk to each other too much outside of board meetings. So that's why you see what you see. So I think it's good. I think it's raw, and I think if we have committee of the whole meetings, you won't see this, and this is what people tune into. So I think it's important. Speed limit signs, the statistics show they work. I mean, we have 90% of the people doing the speed limit now in that area. People are hitting the brakes. I can tell you what, I do. If I'm going 2-3 over, I mean, the first thing I see that red, I'm hitting them quick. So I mean, it's kind of natural now when if you do see the red, but I feel like they work. So, and it's a board decision if they want to partner with the school. I think it's important that we show partnership with the schools. I think the speed signs on the roads are a community issue. It's all of our children. It's all of our families to keep them slow and keep them safe. And we got to keep that partnership with our school system as well. We know they have the money. We have the money too. So I think it's important to keep that partnership. I wanted to recognize that March is Women's History Month, and it was started by President Jimmy Carter. I want to thank all the women in our township building, the local business women, the women who serve in the military, and the women first responders. Through history, women have played a major role in this country. So just wanted to recognize that. And if anybody has any more comments, no? A motion to stand adjourned. Okay, support it. Adjourned.